We're going to get started with today's study session. My name is Councilor Khalid Bey, pro temp, sitting in for President Hudson. We're going to start with President Hudson's item number 9. You should know by Monday. Know by Monday, appreciate it. Councilor Thompson.
Thank you, Councilor. I have items 10, 11, and 12. Item 10 is going to be held until we can get a committee meeting in here. And I'm going to try and get one set up. I just spoke with the chief. We're trying to set it up before the next meeting because of the budget ones. We're not going to get it in this next couple of days. Item 11, Chief, do you want to speak about this? I know this is about the medications and that and the 2-year contract.
Good morning, I'm Chief Mons from the Fire Department. This memorandum of understanding is just so we can purchase narcotics from a required hospital so we can provide our advanced life support on emergency medical calls. We just go through their pharmacy and buy the drugs from the hospital. It's upstate. Does anybody have any questions regarding that?
All reimbursable?
It's not reimbursable. We have to buy the meds to go on our ambulance and on our fire trucks that respond to these types of calls. So we do have Narcan, that is. We get that for free right now, but these types of drugs are the high-level narcotics that are used for advanced life support.
Okay, any questions? Thank you, Chief.
Okay, thank you.
Item number 12 was the committee meeting that we had, or I had last week with on towing rates. Any questions on those? Okay, those are my items. All set.
Thank you. I have item number 13, which is a resolution memorializing the governor and the state to amend existing penal law related to threats against public officials. I always make the express concern, I'm not the only one, about how wide open City Hall is as a government building in comparison to others. I think that may be a little negligent on our part, and certainly don't want us to be in a condition where we face a crisis before making an adjustment. I think it's smart to move before crisis strike, and so I think it's very necessary, and hopefully my colleagues can agree. But I'll call that item ready. Councilor Rudd.
Thank you. I have items 14 through 18. For 14 is the mid-year transfer. Mary, can we just have this update out front?
I requested that this be withdrawn because we are working on another plan based on the committee meeting that we had a couple weeks ago.
So we withdraw it, and then you're gonna on the next. When do you enter the next?
I'm hoping for the next council meeting that a new mid-year transfer will come before you.
Okay.
So you're withdrawing this council?
I'll withdraw it. Thank you. The annual estimate for the school district. We're holding it. I understand, but the timing is. I understand there's some uncertainty in the school district. What's the state? When will you know what your state funding and what your plan is? Because the timing gets very hectic here because we have to approve our budget by May 8th, I believe, and this is. When will we have some draft or proposed budget from the school district?
Our budget is final and will be approved by the board on Monday the 29th. So the morning of the 30th, we would have that over to the city.
Can you share the version that they'll be voting on ahead of time?
Yes.
So that we can familiarize ourselves with it, and then if there are changes, we can just look at the difference.
Okay.
Okay. So if you can do that now I guess you've already shared it with the board. Mm-hmm. Can you just share it with the council as well?
Sure.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question while we have Sandy? Could you tell me what the status was of state assistance this year?
We had asked for an additional $15 million in state aid, and we got $3.5 million. So we got about 25% of what we had asked for.
And how does that compare to past years?
We usually get about 50% of our ask. For the last 4 years, we've asked for 12 to 15 and gotten about 7 each year. So it was a little bit less than what we had gotten in the past.
So we've seen about a 50% reduction from what the state normally gives us this year.
We did. There were other legislative changes that made things easier for us, some changes in requirements and mandates, but the funding itself was less than what we usually get.
Can you go into those? What do you mean changes?
So for example, there's a set aside of community schools funding. They now will allow those funds to be spent on more items than what they had in the past. So they've made it more
They've
flexible.
loosened restrictions on how some of the money is spent to allow you to have discretion on where you
Correct.
spend it.
So I don't mean to, because there's going to be a few other budget things. I think this highlights the importance of us having the budget so we can look at it and understand it. And then we will have this hearing to ask all the other questions. But I think I would much rather ask these questions once we've had the budget to look at.
Thanks. Yep. Apologies.
It's okay. Okay, so we're holding that. 16. Does anybody have any questions on the correction? I'm okay with the correction. We're good. 17 and 18. Who is best to speak about these? So can you explain the rescinding of last year's local law to me?
So once, yes, number 17 is to rescind the local law that was put into place last year for the fiscal year 19's budget. The state comptroller and the law requires that if you did not exceed the tax cap last year, you have to rescind the local law. So that's this piece of legislation here.
Well, that's timely. Okay. And then 18.
Number 18 is the authorizing the real property tax levy in excess of the limit established under GML. It's a waiver that we asked for last year. We will ask for it again this year. You know, it doesn't mean you agree to raise taxes. It's just a waiver that we and the state comptroller looks to make sure it's in effect when we file the tax cap.
Okay.
Information in July.
In relation to 18, I have a couple questions that I believe we could answer now. If Joe Barry, would you can come up, and if you, I don't think any of it needs executive session. I think it's all pretty public. So on this local law, let's say that the local law gets voted down. So the council says we don't authorize blowing the cap.
Correct, yeah.
Then if the budget, the council would then really need to amend the budget to bring it in line with not blowing the cap. But let's say we don't get 6 people to agree to a budget, so the mayor's budget becomes law. Where would the money for his budget come from if there's less sales? How would the property, so we would actually implement the property tax increase as he said, but then the money would go in a reserve?
Yes, if you do not waive the so-called tax cap, the state law requires any excess funds to be placed in a reserve account and applied to next year's tax levy.
Right, so I understand that estimate to be about $1.2 million that we're currently over the expected cap, what we'd be allowed to raise.
I'll have to defer to Mary on the numbers.
Okay, forget the number, let's just call it an estimate, 1.2. So if you collect the 1.2, you put it in reserve, can the mayor then use the fund balance? So he currently is saying 8 million use of fund balance. Because his budget becomes law, can he then just spend 9.2 from the fund balance?
No.
Or, so it does become a true, his budget would in theory be lower by the amount of the
adopted budget minus the funds put into the reserve account would have to be managed so that it remains balanced throughout the fiscal year.
So he would have to manage it to a budget, his proposal minus the whatever the amount that was
Excess.
in excess.
Correct.
Okay. Does anyone else have any questions on that point? Because
Yes.
Yes.
I just want to point something out. This is the same exact item that 17 was. Procedurally, it gives you the
I know
option.
it's the
Option.
same item as 17.
Every year
In
we
all
have
honesty,
the option.
in all honesty, a year ago, if I had my understanding and my legs, if it wasn't my first year, I wouldn't have voted for 17. Okay? So I'm happy to rescind 17,
yeah.
but I'm also happy to not vote for 18.
So if money is captured, if this is not voted on, and it exceeds, the cap is exceeded, my understanding is that money is captured, set in a reserve, and then distributed back to the taxpayers the following year, is that correct?
Well, not distributed per se. It's applied
Against the
to
levy.
the tax levy.
Okay. So it
if
lowers.
you have a $10 million tax levy, 1.5 will come out of this reserve account.
Correct. Okay, so what does that translate to? It lowers the levy, right?
Well, it's applied to, assuming the next fiscal year, the levy is in line with the tax cap, so it only grows 1%. You would have that number, but you would have to reduce it by the amount in the reserve fund.
In the reserve fund, correct.
So
Okay.
It would likely
taxpayer would
mean that
not
our
see a
tax rate would
refund.
be
It would-
slightly lower in order to collect the amount we would be allowed to collect next year. So the tax cap is applied to the amount of dollars that we collect from property taxes in the community. So it's not about the rate, like the rate is a function of how much money we get and how much assessed value there is that's taxable in the community. So we're able to increase the total amount by whatever the state says the cap is. It's at most 2%, but it's never 2%. It's always the number lesser of that, which is typically around 1%. So
Adjusted for inflation, they assign us a rate.
Right. So it would just be captured, applied to the next year's budget, and that levy
Which would lower the, which would
would
lower.
lower it the next year, so the people get their
next
money
year,
back.
so- Right, exactly.
a year
Which
later.
is,
Well, we would
Practice.
collect the same amount of taxes.
We would collect the
but
same.
Right.
They're not getting. They're getting like a. They're overpaying year one to get. They wouldn't have. They prepaid for year two.
Prepaid, so
Yeah,
they
that's
won't get
all
it.
it is.
It won't function as a rebate check.
It's not a rebate. No, we won't be mailing it,
Not
but
a
it would
refund.
mean that they would get their star check.
If we stayed under the tax.
no, if we stayed under, if you go over.
Okay. Okay. Wait.
It does not.
Wait. Okay.
When-
So if we do not authorize blowing the cap, and we miss the cap some procedural way, and the money gets frozen into this account that gets applied to the next year, in that situation where we did not intentionally blow the cap, people still get their star rebate checks, right?
I do not believe so.
If you go over
That
the
part
cap.
doesn't make sense to me.
The state
because
comptroller will do the calculations after the budget is adopted.
then I need a formal opinion on that, because like I don't. That's not the way I understood it. I understood that if we don't authorize, it's almost like, because otherwise you're forced to be conservatively low in order to avoid the cap, and there's some uncertainty in the number. I just don't. Anyways, I would like a formal opinion on that situation where we don't authorize it, but technically the comptroller in their determination says we collected more money than we should have, and then we say that's fine, we did. We apply it to next year. Since we're applying it to the next year, I have no reason. I don't understand why they would then not. Like, that is our compliance within the STAR eligibility, in my opinion, is that the money rolls to the next year.
I'd be glad to check the general municipal law and
Okay,
and,
I think we
provide
need
you
to
with
have
the-
The problem is, under our system, the mayor's budget goes into effect, and therefore you
It
did
exceeded.
exceed the limit.
Right.
And that's for, breaks the ability for the refund check. Then the next year, you may put it in the reserves. but
Well,
you-
so we literally have to amend we have to have 6 people to amend it.
Yes, and
Well,
I guess my concern is and this is, again, we've had these conversations going on. Do we believe, because with the last audit from the comptroller, that, that special assessments and everything count against us, and these fees that we've already established count against us?
Yes, that's why we have requested
So even
it
if
be
we
waived
increase
as
the
a
taxes,
technical
we're
matter.
already over that.
Potentially.
Correct?
It's
Okay.
not a sure thing.
So
but
that was,
potentially.
and again, that was why I voted for what we voted for last year that we are now rescinding. 17, we had to put in place because the concern was after the audit was that we were going to be over regardless, whether we increased taxes or did anything, that we were already going to be over that.
I know the argument last year, and I bought it too.
And no,
But I no
it's,
longer
it's
believe-
not buying it, Mike. No. Look it. It's not about buying it like they're trying to pull the wool over our eyes. I have concern as well over the idea that we're doing this because I'll put my cards on the table. I'm not in favor of any of the tax increases that we're proposing. Folks are going to lose out on star exemptions. I'm not okay with it. We can't, make our taxpayers foot the bill for new ideas and new plans on things like that. I'll show my cards. However, my concern is that we're already going to be over if what they said in the audit, if the tax department goes along with this, along with what the audit said for us and other municipalities, that these fees count against us, that, you know, that we need this in place.
So I understand the concern, and I think it was a genuine concern. I'm not saying it was wool over our eyes, but I believe that there was an expression of concern that the calculation may change and things that weren't included will be included. And but I think that anything that gets included in the incremental increase has to be added to the base. So to the extent we collected those things the year before, I believe it shouldn't affect it. Those things should also be subject to that. So it has been expressed concern that, oh, well, maybe the comptroller wouldn't do it that way. I don't actually think the comptroller would, because it makes sense. I don't need, we don't need to go
but I
more
understand what
into
you're saying,
this,
that we shouldn't be penalized for what we had in place last year. It should just be the increase to what we had last year, correct? Am I, yeah. And I don't disagree with that in theory, but, you know, the idea behind this is that, you know, you sort of need this in place to, I guess, play a little bit of defense. But
I think the defense is actually to not have it in place so that you can't do. I mean, it depends on this answer.
Yeah,
I think we need this answer because I understand that if we don't intentionally blow it and then anything above that we collect we set into a reserve, that to me is compliance, and people should get their checks, because it's not our fault that the comptroller doesn't know the definitive number today.
But Council, you're ignoring the fact that a budget goes into effect. And
Right,
You
okay,
don't
so
do
we
your
have
own
to-
separate budget. You're amending the budget that's in front of you. If that budget goes into effect and exceeds the tax limit, you exceeded the tax limit.
Okay, so anybody who doesn't vote for amendments to the thing to get under the tax cap is sabotaging it.
yeah, so I got to hold hands and sing Kumbaya on this one, guys.
Councilor Bay, did you have a?
No, I'm just waiting for you to finish.
Okay. I'm sure we'll talk about this more.
Just to clarify an item, you can adopt amendments with 5 votes, but then they're subject to the mayor's veto.
Right, I get that too. So we could do the dance.
Could pass them to get vetoed,
Or
Maybe
not.
vetoed.
or not.
Never know. All right. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Green.
Thank you. So items 19 and 20, there'll be public hearing on Monday, May 6th. I don't know if there's any further questions on those items in the meantime, colleagues.
They have to be held for the 22nd, right?
Right.
What's the,
This is slurry seal.
yeah, what's the public hearing on?
We have to, by law, hold a public hearing because we charge the Surrey seal charge to the frontage of the
directly.
property of
Gotcha,
the property owner.
Okay.
One of those fees that's going to get us over that tax cap.
Oh, good. All right. Thank you.
Item 21.
21 is for DPW to bond for our equipment and be able to purchase it on number 22.
So, I think there's going to be some questions on just where the fleet is in general in terms of what these will replace and the lifespan of it all. So I don't know if there's further information that you guys can provide to us in terms of, you know, what this replaces and what the status
I think
of
on our list
Yep.
that I had sent with the letter may have the piece of equipment that we are replacing, the year and the miles on it.
Okay.
If you don't have that, I can get it to you.
Okay. Does anyone have any specific questions about this at this time? This is the DPW fleet, basically of different equipment. But okay.
Also, I have number 24, and that's just amending a waiver of competitive bid for Monroe tractors to increase the not exceed amount to 120,000.
Okay. Thanks.
Can you explain that a little bit more?
I think I had $60,000 in there for repairs of milling and paving machines. And because of some major breakdowns in those 2 machines, I had to up the waiver so we could get it paid for.
Okay. Are they looking in good shape now?
Once we get them back.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 23. Neil?
Item 23, we're going to request that it's held for now. We are still in negotiations with the operator on some of the fine-tuning of the details with that contract.
Ideally, when would we get the bikes and the program be put in place?
So originally it was scheduled for this month. It would likely be sometime after that, but in the near future. That's one of the final items that we're working through. We want to make sure that we have the right details in place so it's a successful launch.
Okay. I guess as you get updates, just let us know and we can let people know.
Sure. Thank you.
I have a question about just about the bike program in general. How does it work as far as like liability if someone is riding a bike and they crash or ruin the bike? How does that work?
The liability rests with the operator.
Okay.
So it's a private company operating the system for us.
Okay. So we're not going to be at fault of any injuries or?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay.
Only if they land in a pothole that we didn't fix.
And do we feel fairly confident? I know there's been some adjustments with the addition of electrical supplementation for the bicycles. How has that impacted your projections for everything? I mean, I saw costings now at looking at like 50. Is that correct?
Yes. So again, that's part of the final details we're working out, but the overall cost of the system, there's no cost to the taxpayer.
Yeah.
There is a cost to use the system.
Right.
And those rates are mostly unchanged from the original agreement.
Original proposal. And someone raised a concern for me about people taking the bikes and leaving them in public thoroughfares. Are you laughing because you know who said it to me?
No, but that's it's something we've seen with this. We're a little bit late to the game,
right?
But what that means is that we get to learn from the other systems. And part of this system is it's not free roaming. In order to end your ride, you must lock to. And so we have hubs and stations around which are basically just bike racks. So in order to end your ride, you have to lock it to the station.
So if you don't lock it up, you end up continually charged for the time that it's not locked up, or
Right.
liability for the bicycle itself.
Right, you're charged, and then also they will institute a fee if you make a mistake or anything like that.
Oh, that's good to know. Thank you.
So I asked this question earlier, and I don't know if maybe you can answer a little bit better. You know, what about for those? Because I think one of the options is you can have like almost like a monthly pass. You know, is it tracked with the GPS? How does that work? You know, let's say I get the monthly pass and I just keep saying every month I'm gonna pay. Do I get to just bring the bike home and keep it forever?
So the bikes feature always on GPS, and you are prorated to the minute. So basically, you're signing up for a service, and if you take the monthly membership or the yearly membership, you get 60 minutes a day that you can use. You're tracked, but that's on you to use it. You could take 6 10-minute rides. But if you were to, say, sign out the bike for a pay-as-you-go, you still are paying for it. So they know where you are, and basically you're accountable for that.
And the other thing too, I mean, any replacement would be from Gotcha Bike, the operator, not the city, right?
Correct. This is their equipment that they're operating on our behalf. So all of these bikes have unique identifiers. If there's an issue with one, you can easily track down whose it is and who you call. So, and these are all maintained, operated. The system is balanced by Gotcha Bike.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Items 26 through 28.
What happened to 25?
Oh, I'm sorry. So 25 is it's an agreement with Verizon. It will be held, and we'll have a committee meeting to discuss it.
Okay, great.
All right, 26 to 28.
Hi, this is for.
Can you just identify yourself?
Oh, sorry. Kelly Haggerty, Division Engineer of Buildings. This is for renovations of the Northeast Community Center and the Westcott Community Center kitchens. Our skilled trades are actually going to perform the work. We're going to have a work order for the design, and then skilled trades is going to perform it. And I believe it's going to happen this fall.
Okay. Do you have any more like overview of what's going to be happening in the kitchens?
Sure. Northeast, they're going to move a wall, and they're going to change some. They're going to expand the kitchen, which will move a bathroom a little bit, and then we're going to do ADA upgrades in the bathroom, and then all new equipment, cabinets, counters, floors, lighting. Westcott is more equipment, counters, cabinets. We're not moving any walls there.
Okay. Any questions? Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Item 29.
29, 30, and 31 are companion pieces.
Okay.
29 is for the 300,000 for the Hiawatha Lake Wall. I'm not,
The next one is to bond the remaining of the wall, and the 31 is to authorize the overall project.
okay. So, we did the first portion of the project a couple years ago where we did the stone pedestrian bridge and a little portion of the lake wall along the bathhouse. This entire project we have a couple grants, and with this money from the county, we were going to do phased. We were going to do 3 more phases. Now we can do 1 phase, do the entire balance of the wall.
So Kelly, the money from the county is of concern. The money from the county, is this applied to the abstract, or is this dollars coming into the city transfer?
Joe Barry, First Assistant Corporation Counsel. So these funds have kind of a history behind them. Your former colleague, Councilor Boyle, had requested that the county provide assistance for this project.
Correct.
So back in 2017, the county legislature authorized it to be placed on the city-county abstract. And my understanding is the funds have been collected by the county and they're being held in a county account. The intermunicipal agreement that's before you would authorize the arrangement whereby, as we do with many of these IMA-type projects, we would spend the funds through the city project initially with the bond ordinance, and then under the agreement with the county, we would basically submit the invoices to the county for reimbursement up to the 300,000.
So let me ask you, is this a slippery slope? Do we do this in other areas?
Well, this was a little unusual in that back in 2017, it kind of did not follow the normal process. Normally, the county and the city administrations would agree on a project and bring you an IMA ahead of time. But Councilor Boyle, looking out for her district, was able to obtain the funds on her own initiative, and the county reserved them, but we cannot access them until the Common Council adopts the IMA.
Sure. I don't want to speak for Common Councilor.
There's nothing incorrect there, but when Councilor Boyle asked for the assistance, she asked for county money.
Yeah, well, that's what I was just going to point out.
And
I spoke
it was
with...
chosen by the county to put it on the abstract, which means that city taxpayers are paying for it. No different than the bonding here, but city taxpayers are paying the $300,000, but on the abstract. Just to remind you, the county controller for years has said the use of the abstract in this manner is not acceptable. This is something that you have to be concerned about. Now, the minor administration asked that this money be refunded back on the abstract and not accepted it, but that's not the position of the current administration.
Okay, so just explain the agreement again so that we can discuss the rest of it, but the agreement, this is just an
Yes, the intermunicipal agreement is similar to the many IMAs that we've entered into in the past. It's a funding mechanism whereby the county is saying they'll support this project, but we have to submit certain paperwork to show that the money was spent on the project.
And does it state in the agreement that the funds are coming from being applied to the abstract, or does it not? Does it not speak to that?
It speaks to the abstract, that the funds were reserved through the abstract.
What was the process by which the city gave consent for the county to collect via the abstract?
Well, technically we did not, because the IMA should have been approved ahead of time.
Right.
But
so the county just collected taxes from city residents to pay for a project that they wanted to help with?
Technically, they should not have placed it on the abstract without the IMA being in place.
All they're doing
prior.
is, okay.
I think this was an unusual situation. It has not happened before, and now that everyone's on the same page, it may not happen again.
Just to clarify, we're not asking the county to do an IMA for county funds. These are funds of city taxpayers collected simply from city taxpayers.
Yes.
not that you can speak for the county or anyone here can speak for the county, but it would be my assumption that, you know, they've collected it. It's in.
I did confirm that with the county attorney.
They're not gonna.
It's held in some kind of
just sit there
reserve
until something's
fund.
done with it.
Correct. I have not explored with them what would happen if we did not enter into the IMA. I suppose it could be reapplied.
I just look, this is a project that Councilor Boyle really wanted to get done, and I can respect and appreciate that, and it's something that I wanted to see done as well, because it's a beautiful park and the work needs to get done. But my only concern is, I think, like most councilors, is that this is not going forward how I think any of us want to see this done. If the county wants to, you know, help fund a project that they see of value, this is not best practice. And I don't think it should happen in the future. But if the money's just going to sit there, I do think it should probably be used for the project, to be blunt. But going forward,
In terms of the overall abstract, it's not a large percentage.
No, and I understand and appreciate that. I just think it sets a bad precedent for if the lodge or the executive want to do something like this again. And I just, you know, if they want to give us some sort of grant, great. But to just fund it through the abstract, I happen to agree with the comptroller, or now state senator, on this one. And that doesn't always happen. But I happen to agree that this is probably an improper way to fund a project like this. But again, I don't believe that they're going to, you know, refund the money or do anything with it. I think out of stubbornness, it's probably just going to sit there. Correct? I mean,
Well, I have not explored that option with them.
I'll make some phone calls this afternoon.
But even if they did refund it, so to speak, the amount is small compared to the overall tax levy, so it would probably, no one would really notice it.
Is there a high-level explanation of the way the cost works? Because I just don't understand the way the numbers add up. So it's authorized up to 1.7 million total project. This new authorization is 861,000. Does that mean the difference has already been spent? Is that the initial work that was done?
The project that we're talking about now is about 1.4. The project of the stone wall and the pedestrian bridge was about 300,000. So we're looking at it as one large project overall.
Okay. What's the timing for the project? Can you give us an overview of when phase 1 started and when you're expecting the next phase, which is going to include all 3 phases, will be included?
Well, we have to, because of some of the state money, we have to go to SHPO and get approval, so that takes a few months. We were hoping to get this construction season. But we need authorization. So we're hoping that if we can start this season, we could get the bulk of it done this year and maybe finish up in the spring.
Okay, thank you. Item 32.
Afternoon, councillors. John Kivilan, Department of Engineering. Item number 32 is a local law. The City of Syracuse to grant a permanent easement over 221 Wolcott Avenue. That's a parcel that the city owns, to 215 Wolcott Avenue. It's for driveway, sidewalk, and stairs located at that residence.
Introduced and tabled.
No, it doesn't have to be. If you notice, Council, I sent you an email. This item, along with the 2 others for the rescind the tax and all, were laid on your desk. And as long as they're laid on your desk 10 days prior to the council meeting, they're eligible for a vote. I believe this is affecting the sale of this property, so that's why they wanted it to be voted on as soon as possible.
Understood. Any questions on this?
Yeah, I don't necessarily understand. Why does it need to be a local law?
Because anytime you give away a permitted easement versus a temporary easement where you can rescind it, it's like selling the value. You're selling it. So anytime you sell anything, it's got to be a local law.
Okay, and exactly what is this property? What's the relevance of acquiring it?
215 Wolcott Avenue is a residence. It only has a 3-foot access onto Wolcott Avenue. Its driveway goes onto Stoll across the parcel that we own, which is 221 Wolcott Avenue. So we have to grant them an easement, access easement over our parcel because they already have an existing driveway. That's how they get to their residence. They have no other access to the right-of-way.
Oh, okay. And what property do we own near there at Stolp? What is the relevance of that?
We own 221 Wolcott. The water department has 2 30-inch conduits from the reservoir on that parcel.
Got you. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Those are my items.
Yep. Councilor Carney.
Thank you, President Pro Tem. I have items 33, 34, 35, and 36.
Good afternoon, Julie LaFave, Commissioner Parks and Recreation. Item number 33 and 34 are both to accept items from Tipperary Hill Neighborhood Association. The first to go in the James Passes Arboretum in Faldo Park, some decorative benches and trash cans and planters with their name on them. And item number 34 is an agreement for them to purchase and install a shed at Burnett Park in a mutually agreed upon location because they run so many events within our facility, including the run, so they would use it for storage. Any questions? Item number 35 is to request a waiver of residency for lifeguards. It's that time of year when we need to hire for all of our summer season. This is the worst case scenario, up to 100. We hope to obviously hire less than that in the non-residents, but we like to be prepared in case that happens.
This one, Julie, if I comment on this? This one's kind of a perennial for me that always kind of annoys me, that we have so many jobs programs in the city, and yet we always seem to need to outsource for this. Is there any pipeline? I mean, I feel like this has come before us before, and we said, is there a pipeline? And it feels like it will continue to be a perennial. But I'm wondering if there's like some type of pipeline we can develop, because we have so many, we've done so much to try to increase youth employment that it seems tragic to me that these jobs would go.
So we do year round. So I brought somebody here, Pool Supervisor Bernie, here to address what we do to try to entice residents to become lifeguards.
We do have a strong pipeline.
Okay.
Introduce yourself. Bernie DeMott, Pool Supervisor for Parks and Recreation. We do have a strong pipeline with the high schools. The issue becomes, it is a perennial one, as you said. The problem, one of the problems that we have is if there is no interest in the high schools to teach the courses that we teach the phys ed teachers, then those courses aren't taught in the high schools. We have a very robust training program. We teach 4 lifeguard trainings minimum a year. We research probably once every 2 months. We teach water safety instructor classes so that our lesson program is robust. We also teach CPR classes all year long. We close the pools the 2nd or 3rd week in August, and a month later we're preparing for the next summer. So we teach them constantly. We don't have sometimes, or at least in the last 6 or 7 years since some key retirements occurred in the phys ed departments of the high schools, though key people retired, and they were our teachers for students who wanted to have jobs. At that point, or up until that point, we didn't hire from the outside. We try to keep that to a minimum. We don't hire outside of the city lifeguards during the year. It's just the 2.5 months that we are open in the summer. Because we hire so many, we hire 150 staff to run the 10 pools that we run for that 8-week period. We don't get enough people to take the courses.
So you feel, if I understand you correctly, that the gap in solving this problem is a lack of continued responsiveness from phys ed teachers in our local high schools?
I wouldn't say the priority is solely placed on whether the phys ed teachers want to do it. A lot of it has to do with the scheduling in the high schools, whether or not those phys ed teachers who are interested. We certify the phys ed teachers. We run lifeguarding instructor courses, so then they in return can teach the courses that we need, and then they send them to us. We did have that pipeline, and now for a lot of reasons we don't.
Okay, I would love to. I'm sure it sounds like you are already doing a lot of robust work, and it sounds like you're already doing a lot of stuff. But if there's some way we could get together and maybe talk about how we get that, you know what I mean? How we rebuild that pipeline. I would be interested in trying to assist or help. Or,
the first person, if I were you, I would contact would be the head of athletics in the district. And from that, you can bring it down to the levels of where the pools are.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I have a couple questions. One is, do we know numbers, what we actually hired from outside, like last year?
It was approximately 50.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think it was much more than that, and we try to keep it at that. Right now, we screen what we call we have an evaluation where we screen for potential lifeguard candidates, and we've screened about 60, and we've screened about 25 out-of-city residents who would like to work for us.
Okay. And I don't know if we have the answer to this, but do we know pay-wise where we compare to other municipalities that have pools that?
We haven't done an official study of that in a while. We did when Mary put in for a raise a few years ago for our staff. It was because for that reason that we were underpaying, and therefore people were going to other places to get jobs. I know that we don't pay as much as the state does, and or the county, and they have a lot of facilities that they need a lot of lifeguards for.
Okay.
And how much are the fees for them to take the course? How much is it?
For in-city residents, it's approximately $85.
$85.
Then non-city residents who take the course, because we don't close it to outside entities that want to come in and have their students take the courses. So we teach everyone.
So if they take it in high school, are they still paying that $85?
That's a private arrangement that the district makes with the Red Cross.
Yeah, okay. Some of the fees have to go to the Red Cross. We don't really take any as a department.
Okay.
It's a nominal pool fee for that. But yeah, we have a separate, this is like a special account where we put Red Cross money that then we pay back to the Red Cross.
This is just whimsical, but Mrs. DeMott was my 9th grade English teacher, and she worked really hard, and there's no one who I would trust more to like she lives in the city, loves the kids in the city, so I fully trust her to hire as many city residents as she can, and I trust her to actually come and tell us what we can do to recruit more city folks when she has the idea.
One up you, Tim. I had her for 11th and 12th English.
Yes.
So.
I thought it was 10th and 12th. Yeah, I love the city. I don't want to go anywhere, but I also would be willing to work with you on getting together. I don't know if it's April Wertheim, who is the big overall athletic director for the district, or
Superintendent's nodding yes to me.
Yeah, she would be the one that we would sit down with and collaborate on getting a stronger pipeline.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions on that item?
No.
Okay. Item number 36 is to enter an agreement with Pet Cremation Services for post-life services as a part of our dog control department. Thank you.
Any questions? No. Those are my items.
All right, thanks. Councilor Lovejoy Cornell.
Thank you. I have item 37, which is ready unless there are questions from the council. Hearing none, it's ready. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Councilor Allen.
Thank you. I have items 38 through 65. Hey, Owen.
Good afternoon, Councilors. Owen Kearney with the city's planning division. I'm here today. This item is in regard to the city's contract with Clarion Associates. As you know, Clarion has been working with us on the Rezone Syracuse project. They are our primary consultant. Their current contract is up with the city this month. We are not quite complete the project, and we are requesting an extension through November of this year so that they may stay on and work with us as we do a couple of things. One, release the final draft ordinance and map next month, begin public meetings also next month to present this and update the public on our work and the final draft, and ultimately enter the legislative process in June with both the city's planning commission and ultimately before you, the Common Council, during the summer. We want Clarion to be available to help work and consult and ultimately present this work to you, and as such we're requesting this extension in their contract date. No increase in funds, just an extension of the contract end date.
What's the possibility of this going past November?
Well, we're going to work closely with you to minimize that. It's our intention to complete this work this year, and obviously working closely with you to do that. But we feel that we can get it done in that time, and that's the date we've set.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 39.
Good afternoon, councilors. I'm Jeff Harrop from the City Zoning Office. Item 39 is a district plan amendment for Syracuse University to amend Subdistrict 3 of the university's district plan to facilitate the construction of an addition to Link Hall.
You said Link Hall?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm just kind of curious. We've gotten the explanation that this is to set aside these districts as, you know, as labeled as planned institutional districts to avoid the redistricting, the rezoning. Could you explain to us what the impetus for that is? We've heard the explanation that there's no plan to redevelop these areas in the immediate future. But what does this, why rezone then? Why not just go with the rezoned options that are coming down the pipeline? And what is the protocol with this moving forward? You know, like what, they still need to bring it to the council, as I understand, if they'd like to make any changes. Is that correct, my understanding?
There are a couple answers to your question, and most of them begin with "it depends." I'll start by saying it sounds like your question,
which legally translates to no.
Your question seems to pertain to items 40, 41, and 42,
yes,
which are the new sub-districts.
Mm-hmm.
Item 39, sub-district 3 is already in existence. So I'll be happy to answer your question with respect to 40, 41, and 42.
Yeah, I was kind of going, I know we're stepping on the block of them here, so if we could speak to all of them.
So is 39 an example of what will happen in the future?
That's being amended for
Correct.
a specific project. 39.
I know, but that's
it is an example. So once a district plan is approved for a planned institutional district, or in these cases a sub-district, the institution, in this case Syracuse University, will then have to submit project plans to the Office of Zoning Administration for review to ensure that they're in compliance with the district plan. If they're not, they will then have to amend the district plan, which will then come back to the Planning Commission and then the Common Council.
Okay, and I guess what are the change in parameters between, you know, before it gets to the zoning? What, you know, what are the limitations the same as any other district? You know what I'm saying?
I probably, and maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong. It wasn't, the PID isn't created, and correct me if I'm wrong in terms of interpreting your question, Counselor. It's not created to exempt them from coming zone changes, more than it is about the design of
correct.
Right.
And each district plan identifies the uses that would be allowed in that district or sub-district.
Okay, yeah, so I guess that is my question. What are these uses specified? Like if it says we're able to build a gas station on this residential area, then that's a difference in requirements than what is normally.
No,
you know
correct.
The
uses would have to be limited to the institution.
What's that?
The uses would have to be limited to the institution, such as for Syracuse University, educational in nature. They could have, such as a bookstore, they could have retail uses, but anything of the nature of a gas station, they would have to specifically include that in the district plan and a project plan that would have to be approved ultimately by the
I think the specific question is, like, give an example of up on Skytop, the university owns some land that is currently designated for housing. If they come in and say we want to build a sports complex there, would that be allowed without rezoning to build a sports complex on the south campus on land that was originally designated for housing?
It would have to have been part of the district plan that would have been approved.
So they wouldn't have to come back if it was in the original plan?
Correct. If it's in the district plan that's approved by the Common Council, any project plan that comes to the zoning office that's in compliance with the district plan would not come back to the Common Council.
And so, so Syracuse University has multiple PIDs, right? It's not like one blanket. It doesn't all roll into one blanket Syracuse University.
Correct. They have multiple
Right,
sub-districts.
yeah, I just mean like as a broad stroke example.
Thank you.
Okay, and do we have those plans in our book?
You should, yes. They were submitted with the resolution for...
Okay. That's clarified a lot. I appreciate it. Yeah, thanks. I'll continue to look into it.
All right, thank you. So that kind of, you already summed up 39 and 40 and 41.
That's what it shows.
Do you need further?
I'm good on,
You good?
I'm good on this.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so we're good. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, 43.
It's the one you held last time. You held this to me.
Yeah. So 43, Counselor Carney, were you able to find out more information?
Yeah, I think we're gonna have to move it. I spoke with Heather previously about it, and
How much you can do?
yeah, there's really, and then I went and spoke with the folks, and they've removed the cars from the city right of way, and looks like they're starting to follow the rules, but I'll just make sure that we stay on top of them. But yeah, there's not a whole lot we can do other than after the planning commission already approved it. I mean, we could try and send it back, but you know, we can't deny it just based on the fact that we don't like it.
Right.
The neighbors don't like it. Let's go with that.
Okay.
So.
All right, so we just gotta make sure we keep our eyes open on that to make sure that they're complying. All right, thank you. And were you here still for 44?
If there are questions.
Okay. So this one is for Strong Hearts, correct?
Correct.
Okay. I don't have any questions. I love Strong Hearts,
Either.
but any other questions?
Don't mess with Strong Hearts.
That's right. Let it have it.
All right, thank you. All right, so now we'll go into the land bank items. I'll go through individually, and the district counselors, you can let me know if you want to hold or if the items are ready, just so I don't have to keep going over mine.
That's here with handouts on.
Hold on one second.
You got the
Stephanie?
handouts?
Yeah. Yep.
Breakdown of everything. Perfect. Thank you.
Yep. Just so I don't have to keep repeating myself, I'm going to hold all the properties in the 4th district. All right, so we'll start with item 45. We're going to hold that. So we'll go with 46. Counselor Driscoll.
Call it ready. Here you go.
47.
Hold that one, please.
48.
Would you hold 48 and 57 till Monday? I'll let you know before that.
Okay. 49 is held. Item 50.
Ready?
51.
Ready.
All right. 53.
What's that one? Hold that one, please.
54.
Hold that one as well.
Okay. So 55, 56, and 57 are held. 58.
Hold that one also.
59 is held. 60 is held. 61 is held. 62.
I think that one is also being held. What's that? Sorry.
You're okay?
Yeah, hold that one.
Okay, 63. Counselor Thompson?
Where was it? Those are properties, right? I mean, one's a lot. I mean, that's a lot, so we'll hold those. Hold them both, and then I'll check and let you know by Monday.
Okay. And Commissioner Pasquale, did you have any updates on any of them?
No, not in addition to the notes that are provided.
Okay. All right, thank you. All right, and I also have item 65, which is a resolution urging the governor and the New York State Assembly and New York State Senate to enact legislation directing the New York State Department of Transportation to put forth a design to replace the Interstate 81 viaduct with a street-level boulevard. And this one, if any other counselors would like to sign on to support the community grid. Okay.
Yes.
All right, thank you. So 65 is ready.
Thank you. Councilor Driscoll.
Thank you, President Pro Tem. I have item 66, which we revised the general ordinance regarding deer management in the city. I believe we had a committee meeting on this earlier in the week, and I feel this item is ready, and I urge its adoption.
Appreciate it. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our study session. I have a motion to adjourn.
Motion. So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Yeah.
Aye.